We have 4 different programs that all work with youth in the city and in Oakland and San Francisco to recommend for youth, one youth each, to really represent and talk about this subject. So, and know that for some of them, this might be the very first time they're on stage, so give them extra love. All right? Okay, let's start with introductions. Can you all introduce yourselves, what you're doing, your name, what you're doing now, and then what you want to build in the future?
Okay. Should I start?
Yep,
okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clinay. I am from Rialto, California. What I'm doing now is I'm currently working at Yelp as an account executive. Woo, woo, Yelp, see you. I am representing Hack the Hood, which has basically, they've paved a lot of different ways for me in the past few months, and I'm really grateful to be here. What I hope to build is opportunities for young adults that wouldn't even otherwise think to look into tech, because we're like literally across the street from Oakland and other areas, and they don't know how to reach an opportunity such as this. So yeah, that's what I hope to build.
I'm Yaritza. I was born and raised here in the Mission District. What I'm doing right now is I'm teaching coding to 16 to 24-year-olds, representing Dev Mission. And what I hope to build with tech, eventually I do want to find a better way to teach just tech in general to anyone. Yeah.
My name's Jesus, also born and raised in San Francisco, the Excelsior District. And I'm an information security analyst at VMware. And I just, similar to Yaritza, I want to be able to give back to the community somehow, because a lot of programs have helped me get to where I am today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jaime Esquivel. I am a student at San Jose State University, a 4th year in aerospace engineering. So my story goes a little bit more back. So since I came to the US at 4, so I am undocumented and a first-generation student, so it's just been very rocky since I got here. And then at SJSU, it's been 4 years, so I switched to aerospace engineering because I wanted to do change within the space field, especially like design spacecraft. And the work that I'm currently doing is, so I'm a co-chair for Student Advocates for Education. It's like an undocumented student support group at campus that does a lot with immigration reform or just helping the community. So it's a little bit about me.
All wanting to give back in the world. Okay, just acknowledging that. How did you get interested in tech to begin with? How did you learn about tech? Why tech? And you don't have to go, we can start in the middle too.
Oh, okay, I guess I'll start. So tech wasn't really my ideal way of going about, going to college. My first experience with tech was not only my computer when I was really little, but I was in almost my last year of high school, which was 3 years ago, and I got a trip to Facebook, and I got to meet a couple engineers, and I had no idea what coding was about until they got to teach me and show me what they did on a daily basis, which was problem solve. I didn't know I was good at it or really interested in it until I actually started. So I like tech because I like to change people's perspective of who can be in tech or not be your ideal person of tech, right? I want to help teach people. I like learning something and giving back because that's a good way to solidify what I know. I like to so I learned how to code through my first class in college. It was really hard for me. I would try to go get help, but the teachers weren't very supportive. They would get mad at me, and I thought it was my fault. And it's not just me, it's like everyone in general, tech isn't easy. Some it comes easier, some it doesn't. So I just really eventually want to try to tell people, hey, it's not just you, it's everyone. Tech does not come very easily. Did I get everything?
Yeah?
Yeah.
So mine's is a very odd way of getting introduced to tech. So it started out with me being a gaming nerd. I was really interested, really loved games. So, but I was always curious as to how those things were developed. And so, ended up playing all the different games, Jack and Daxter, PS3, whatever. But I was like, how do they do this? And so that was always the question that was in the back of my mind, like, what is it that they are doing? So long story short, I thought I was going to be a doctor. Didn't happen. And ended
I
up
did
going.
too.
You did?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, change the world, gotta be a doctor.
Right, yeah. So that didn't happen. And when I finished from Cal, I decided to go into animation and visual effects. And I started learning that a lot of these things were very technical. Art is technical. It's not, it's not that there isn't money in art. There's things like Maya and, what else? Photoshop and everything like that. And then my mind started expanding to like, wait, these are actual companies. And people didn't even realize that that was what it was. So long story short, when I finished, I was like, I need to be both creative and I need to be immersed in tech because that's what is important and that is gonna go hand in hand in this type of field. And so I ended up going into Hack the Hood. And so that's how and this is in over a matter of a couple years actually, that's how that happened for me.
So for me, I didn't know I was going to go into engineering because when I was in high school, I was still trying to decide what would be like the route for me. Would I go into poli-sci and even engineering? There's so many types of engineers, civil, electrical, and I didn't get that exposure early enough. So I chose my major because it sounded really cool, industrial systems engineering. So once I was at San Jose State, I'm like, okay, what types of majors are out there and what do I want to do with my life? And it took me 3 years just to gain the confidence of just what did I want to do. And I think for me, I also played a lot of video games. For me, I played a lot of Halo. They say Halo, video games are bad, but for me, it's just it was like my lifestyle. And what made Halo so special was just seeing the progress of humanity, seeing the technology, seeing the spacecraft, or just seeing once you're in a different planet, you get to see just the revolution of technology, so much of it. And one of my heroes for me is Jose Hernandez. He's the first Mexican astronaut who came from a farm-working family and made it. And it's just from him, his story of how he got there. It's just it propelled me just to think more about where I wanted to be. So it took me a couple years. Even though I grew up with technology, I didn't see myself doing it until I saw others do it farther. So that's how I switched to aerospace.
And for me, it was pretty non-traditional. I dropped out of high school at 16, and was just a gardener for 5 years, but I also volunteered with a nonprofit. One day someone's like, hey, there's a coding class you can take at Success Center. And I was like, I don't care, it's fine. But they're like, no, you should just try it, and you get a free laptop. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I did it, and I was like, oh, it's actually pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. And then they called me back, hey, do you want to be a teacher's assistant? And I was like, yeah. And then they're like, you can do as much as you put into it. And I was like, well, I don't even have a high school diploma. They're like, we can help you get a GED. Got a GED through them. And then so it was just building and building. And then, so now I'm just an intern at VMware, and I want to go back and help. Success Center helped me out a lot. And I feel like the big thing for me was just not knowing. I dropped out and I was like, well, there's nothing I can do but garden, but there's so many opportunities out there, especially in San Francisco, that people just don't know about. I feel like it's important to give back and help others.
So what obstacles have you come against, or have you come against any obstacles as you get into tech, and in your life in general, but as you get into tech? And then the second question is, how did you overcome them?
There's so many obstacles. The first thing I had to go through was that it wasn't just I was first gen, so I was also undocumented. Even though I see myself and I believe I can get to NASA, there's just so much I can't do. that's outside of my reach. One, it's just like they only like citizenship, legal residence, and you can't get you can't even have a tour of NASA because you have to go through clearance. And there's just so much, and even for other undocumented people, it's just sometimes tech seems so far away. I'm from the Bay Area, I'm from San Jose, and Google's like nearby, Facebook's nearby, but we see these tech giants as almost impossible because they seem so like great and everything, and that's just been like my challenge, like how can I get there? And I think what helped me is just like through a program called Braven that just like who partnered me up with like a mentor, and they often gave me, like she was from Google, and like from like constant talking to her, I saw them as seeing more as humans, as like almost like everyone else, and that's just how I started. Like it is really possible, and that's something I overcame. And there's still a lot of challenges along the way, just because you don't know. So when I started college, I didn't know anyone, and I started little by little. I started building up my network, and others started helping me along the way. And I think that's one thing I just love doing. And it's just once I'm like in a higher position, or at least as a fourth year, I can help freshmen along the way, and I pull them up. This is how you do this course. This is how you do that course. And then later, if I do get in a position of just like in the tech field, I want to pull up others with me.
I think awareness, like I was saying earlier, I didn't know about any of this. One Success Center put me in the right direction. Then I was like, oh, there's not even, everyone knows software engineer. So that's why I was like, I'll be a software engineer, but there's so much more than just that in the tech world. And just starting off from there and then networking to other programs. The only reason why I heard of Success Center was because I was on another nonprofit that led me to Success Center. Success Center led me to another nonprofit. And now I'm where I'm at. So it's just been that awareness and networking to learn about more stuff that's available.
So, yeah, you? No?
Sure.
Okay. I guess for me, the obstacles, I won't go into my whole life story, but I think one of the biggest obstacles I faced was being told I couldn't do it. And coming from a low-income background and everything like that, I was expected to be a statistic. And so because of the fact that people thought that I had learning disabilities, which I probably do. See? Yeah. That when people, when they would tell me those things, like those were limitations that I had to face. And so I have processing difficulties, and I learned that in college. But I remember back when I was in middle school that my science teacher had called my mom into a meeting and said that I think your daughter has learning disabilities. And it was because I just didn't pay attention, or I would drift off and think about things. But that was a big obstacle, and I wanted so badly to prove people wrong that, my teachers in math in high school said she'd be surprised if I made it into a Cal State. So dealing with stuff like that, I was so hungry and so driven to prove those people wrong that everything was a blur in high school. I was in sports, and I got involved in sports. I was dealing with obesity issues that I tried to deal with on my own. And at the same time, there was a lot of drugs and gang violence in my area. And so that was another thing. I was like, I need to get out of Rialto. And so totally different area now. It's like a suburb now, but that was my mission. That was what drove me. And so that's why I moved up here, because I didn't have that knowledge or that social capital to tell me that these are the things that are available to you and this is what you can apply to. And I just was with all that said, I'm grateful that I was both curious and stubborn. I was very hard-headed, and I think I still am. But I'm very grateful for that. So, and that's why I'm here.
One thing that's always stuck to me was one day after my computer science class, I went to one of my professors and I said I needed help. So he helped me finish my whole program. Great. And my friend who was sitting right next to me, she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Hey, guess what? Curtis is teaching me Vim," which was something pretty new. And some guy from across the room, mind you, this was a computer science room, he was like, "Oh my God," to my teacher, "Anthony, look, she's so smart, she's learning Vim." And he responds and he says, "Don't put her on a high pedestal. She doesn't know very much. Like, calm down." And that's something that really hit me hard. I went home and I cried. And I didn't understand why it was so hard for me to understand tech. And it's not just me. It's just, it take a lot longer. I'll put in the hours, but it'll take me a lot longer to learn, and I'll do it. I also am very young. I'm only 20. So I'm looking for jobs, and being only 20, they're like, "So where's your degree?" First of all, I don't have it. I went to a coding boot camp. That's also a problem. They don't like that. You can't learn everything in 12 weeks. I clearly know that I can't learn everything in 12 weeks, but I'll put in the time. And also that I don't have enough experience. But how am I gonna get experience if you're not willing to give me a try, you know? Like, I'll do the internships, I'll put in the hours. That's just a lot of the same thing over and over and over again. It's been almost 2 years since I dropped out of San Francisco State University. I redid that class. I got an A in that class. And that's when I decided to do a coding bootcamp, because I was tired of all the male professors telling me I couldn't do something when I know I can. So I haven't overcome everything, haven't gotten a job, but I will eventually. But I think one thing I always carry with me is I know I'll get through it, and I want to help people. Once I get where I need to be, I'll help whoever I can. I'll put in the hours. I don't care if I have to be up till midnight, but I will.
Awesome, awesome. So the theme of the conference is driving an inclusive future. What does an inclusive future look like to you?
The way I think of an inclusive future is having every voice on the table and not just one set of group. And what I mean with this is just, like, I really love diversity, and it works everywhere, and it works in different groups, especially in my organization. Once a member who was an art major joined, the whole framework of how we did change completely. Like, we became more like, with art, we wanted to do more with activism and advocacy. And it just goes back to it. Like, I think I went to a conference for engineering diversity at SGSU, and they were telling us about diversity. And they were telling us a group, just like, they put 2 groups together. One group, they were trying to solve a problem, like a bike lane problem with bicyclists, and they wanted to improve upon this. One group was like 5 engineers or 7. Another group some of them were engineers and community members. And they drafted out a plan, and they brought it up to this non-biased group who looked at each other's plans to see which one had a better solution. The one with the community members and the engineers, all of them who put them, the more diverse group, had a better prepared plan. And that's when I think of inclusion. Each one has a set voice, and each voice really matters. And I think that's what brings change and better innovation.
I was going to say tech inclusion for me is, I feel like there's a big disconnect between the nonprofit sector and the technology sector. Before Success Center, I had only heard of Mission Techies, that was a nonprofit that pushed you to pursue tech. Other than that, everybody else was like, don't be in tech. It's frowned upon. And I feel like that's a thing that we can both work on, because I know that together you can get so much more done instead of working separately. Companies now are trying to work more, but it's just in the beginning stages.
What was the question? It's the future, right?
What does an inclusive future look like?
An inclusive future to me, I would think that would be giving people opportunity, actually reaching out to youth. If you see somebody who's young and doesn't even, like I said, is curious about what you're doing or the coding that you're doing, or the type of work that you're doing, to just even pull them to the side. I think that it starts with them young, because if people don't even think to or have the awareness to have the programs. Like we had people reach out to us. I think that goes a long way, but it needs to scale up in a larger scale and be put out everywhere because there are even things that people aren't aware of as far as conferences and just programs, workshops. Like I stumbled across Hack the Hood from a car wash, and I'm 26. Like I didn't, like that, it's just by chance. It shouldn't be by chance anymore. It needs to be that this is an option, because they're doing away with a lot of these creative and technical things in the school systems. And these are like the most important things that people need to know because that's where the future is going, is technology. And so I think it's very important that we start with our youth, create programs and groups and programs and groups of people to be in outreach. I know we have outreach, but it's not, well, in my opinion, it's not where it should be because it's only there if people know about it. The people who have access to it are the people that know about it. A lot of people don't know. And so that's what I see happening.
I have to agree with you a lot. I think if it weren't for me doing another program and finding out about tech, I wouldn't be in tech. Schools don't really tell you, like, you can get a math major, you can get a engineering major.
You can start a nonprofit.
Exactly, right? And if like companies like took the time to go to high schools or even middle schools and be like, hey, you can work here. These are like the jobs you can be. People ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's usually like doctor or I can't think of anything else, right? Yeah, that's the point. Like you can't really think of anything much except for doctor. So if they would come and show you like, hey, like if you like problem solving, come do engineering or come try some math. I think that would be better in the future to include more people. And one thing is for the future, I want to be able to walk into a room and not just say like, I see this specific amount of people, where's my people?
Exactly.
Questions from the audience? There's one over here. Do we have a mic runner? Oh, over on the other side. Over there. Can you raise your hand again? He's coming to you. Right here, right here. There you go.
It's not really a question, but I just want to say thank you for sharing your truths. Continue doing what you're doing. I think that you guys have amazing strength and passion. I'm glad that you basically didn't listen to those who believe that you didn't have the strength and the capability to get where you are right now. So continue to fight and push on.
Thank you.
One over on the end there. She's standing up.
Hi guys, I just wanted to say thank you as well. But interestingly enough, everything that you said, I related to. I too started in a tech company at 19, 20 years old. I started highlighting my diversity, my ability to understand my Latin culture with an American one. I got to know what it's like to sit on a wheelchair and understand the value of health. And when I got to tech, I realized that it was hard to sit at the table and have this conversation, right? It's amazing to hear you speak because I can relate, and it's taken me 4 years to hear a story like yours on a stage. This is very new, and I've been kind of pushing that message here in Silicon Valley for about 4 or 5 years. My question for you is, as hard as it is to get into that conversation and sit at the table, right? Amongst our peers who, hey, they might not all look like us or have gone through what we've gone through, but it's okay, we're sitting at the same table finally. Once you get there, past all the obstacles, how do you get them to actually understand your voice, not just hear it?
That's a good question. I'm really upfront. Thank you for asking the question. I'm really upfront when it comes to my experience, and so I think the best way to go about it is to just be real. Because if you don't if you try to have a cookie, and of course off the work setting, of course, but like if you are bold enough to be real in who you are and your story, if people aren't open enough to be empathetic of where you came from, they have a lot of growth to do. And so I think people are working towards that. And I believe that that is an important thing because there are programs that are happening like this, and there are bigger companies who are trying to be, more open to hearing your voice. You know what I mean? And so I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but I think it's just being brutally honest in where you came from. And if they can't accept that, then go somewhere
At
else.
least you tried.
No, not even at least you tried. It's just like your voice may need to be heard somewhere else, So if you don't open that door, how are people going to know?
Awesome. Perfect.
Thank you.
We are out of time. I just want to give a huge round of applause to you all for sharing your story, getting up on a stage, sharing your story. It's very brave and very important. Thank you.